So when are y'all getting married?
2 weeks from Saturday.
Wow, congratulations. And you still don't have a place to live yet?
She can't decide whether to rent or buy.
We can't decide.
Rent, of course, no contest.
Why?
I rent apartments. What do you expect I was gonna say? The appliances were new a year ago, and don't worry about the stained carpet, we'll replace it. Do y'all have any pets?
A cat?
A cat? We don't have a cat.
We will by the time we move in.
Well, seems like y'all got several things to work out. That'll be $50 per pet per month.
$50?
So we can replace the carpet when you move. Any questions?
Can we just have a minute to talk this over?
Sure. Here's a copy of the lease. Come by the office when you're ready.
Okay. We have got to decide something. What do you think?
It's an apartment. It looks like every other one we've seen this week. What's there to think? Tell me again why we're doing this.
Rent $600. Okay, with a cat, $650. The utilities, another $200 max. We tough it out for 2 years. We save $800 a month, and there's our down payment.
Which Mom and Dad would gladly lend us right now.
Which means we would owe them, and we'd be paying interest instead of making interest. Is that how you want to start out?
Who said they charge us interest?
You know what would feel really good? Is walking into our new home 2 years from now with only a mortgage payment, owing nobody else nothing.
Yeah, maybe you should remind me of that from time to time.
Gladly. Now, are we done looking, or do you want to check out some more places?
Please welcome nationally syndicated radio host and New York Times best-selling author, Dave Ramsey.
Welcome to our real estate and mortgages lesson, where we want to keep the American dream from becoming a nightmare. Open your workbooks to that lesson, and we're going to talk about one of the great American dreams. When we say the great American dream, sometimes it means to own and operate your own business, but very often we are referring to owning your own home. Real estate. It's kind of a uniquely American thing, because in capitalism we have this neat thing called private property rights. And we get to own things, and as those things go up in value, those things help to cause our family to be able to win. And so real estate is a really, really, really fun thing. Now, I love real estate. I grew up in the real estate business. My parents were in the real estate business when I was a little kid, all the way up to when I turned 18 years old. 3 weeks later, I sat for and passed my real estate exam. When I turned 22 years later, as soon as I could, I sat for and passed my broker's exam. And so I've been a real estate broker for decades, and I love real estate. Now, I've not been active in the real estate business for many years, but many of you know my story, and that I made a lot of money in real estate, and I lost everything in real estate. But that didn't make me mad at real estate. It made me mad at me being stupid, which is different. Real estate's a great thing. And in buying and selling foreclosure properties and bankruptcy properties and rehabs and all these kinds of things, and doing quick flips and all these other stuff, I've owned over 1,000 pieces of real estate. So I know a little something about real estate. Having been a broker all those years, having handled all those pieces of real estate myself, and having watched how the business works. And I can teach you a thing or two about real estate, and that's what we're going to do. Before we do that, let's review our baby steps to this point, because we're getting pretty far along in this baby step process. And you got to really help me here. Baby step 1 is $1,000. And that's usually going to take you about a month, maybe 2 months at the most. And if you make under $20,000 a year, that's $500 that you want to go with. Now, once you got that in place, then what's the next thing you do? Debt snowballs, where we list our debts smallest to largest, everything but the house, and we attack them in that order. We pay off all of our debt, and we become debt-free with gazelle intensity. And that usually takes, on average, 18 to 24 months. Some people do it faster, some it takes longer. Then when we're debt-free, everything but the house, in baby step 2, we move on to baby step 3, which is
3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months set aside in your emergency fund. You take that $1,000 account, raise it up to a fully funded emergency fund. Now we've got an emergency fund in place of $10 or $15 or $20,000 or whatever that represents, 3 to 6 months in your house. And you have no payments but a house payment. Does that feel good? Say yes. Yes. That really does, doesn't it? Think about it, no payments. That's pretty incredible. And then you're able to start your wealth building, and you go to baby step 4. And now baby step 4 is what? 15%. 15% of your income going into retirement. And at the same time you're doing that, every dollar we can find above that, we start working on baby step 5, which is we're going to pay on the kids' college at that point. Now, and we're doing baby steps 4, 5, and 6 at the same time, and we're going to add number 6 in this lesson this evening. Let's see what these folks had to say about baby step number 6.
Financial peace has really taken us to the next level. We're joyfully at baby step 6 and feel like it's made a huge difference, not just in our financial future, but in our marriage.
No, we don't ever want to get back into debt. We want to start paying our house off now and get that paid off early.
Not to make a house payment every month is fantastic. Being able to keep that money in the bank, that $1,500 extra every month stays with me. I have a say-so of where it goes.
We paid off our $56,000 and we've subsequently paid off our home, and it's a great place to be completely debt-free.
I am through all the 7 steps, have total financial peace. My kids are in college and private high school, and I really have no money worries at all.
So baby step 6, we're doing 15% in 4 into our retirement account. In baby step 5, we're doing kids' college. And then as we find any extra money in the budget or from anything else, we get raises or whatever else, we start chunking it on the house, and we want to pay off the house early. Now let's look at real estate from several different sides. The first thing is, let's look if you were selling a home. When you're selling a home, you need to think like a retailer. Think if you go into a retail shopping mall, it shouldn't be dirty. It should be clean. It should be sparkling. The windows should be shined at the front door. You don't want to walk up to a picture window that's got a scene in it with mannequins and clothing and handprints be there. This is retail. You want things to shine and look just right. You need to think like a retailer. Think like your house is a model home, like people don't live there. Yes, well, we live here. No, you don't. It's a model home. We put our home up for sale one time. Our children were kind of mid-sized, and they kept going, well, Dad, we have to live here while we're doing this. I said, well, no, you don't. You can pick that up, or we'll find a place for you to live. So kiddies and kids, they don't show up in model homes. There doesn't need to be any sign of kiddies or kids, or even puppies. A big, beautiful dog greeting you at the front door will cost you $10,000. Because everybody doesn't like a big, beautiful dog. And everybody doesn't like a little kitty either. They don't think they're cute. You know what some people see when they see a kitty? They see a litter box. It costs you, it's a $10,000 cat. Think like that. Think like a retailer. Walk around, look at the house. Put in 100-watt light bulbs. Don't put the cheap light bulbs in. Put the bright ones in. And make the room look bigger if it's well lit. Put extra lamps and things. Make sure everything's lit. Everything on your kitchen counter comes off but 2 things. I don't care. Put it in the cabinet. And in your closets, you're going to be moving anyway. So clean your closets out and take out about 75% of what's in the closet. And put it in a box. And put it in the garage because you're moving anyway. You know, people going, you know what a cluttered, crammed up closet is? No closet space in this house. That's what the buyer thinks. When they walk in and see that there's room for things, they go, well, that house had a lot of closet space. Same stinking closet. It's a visual perception thing. You need to think like a retailer. When I had a home that was empty, a home that's empty that's closed up for a while will kind of get that stagnant smell, won't it? A little stuffy in there. If I was a realtor, what I would do is I would get my wife to bake some bread, and I would take it over and let it finish baking in the home. And if you hadn't got time to do that, or a wife that'll help you with that, we just take a little vanilla extract and sprinkle it on the stove and turn the stove on. And it kind of smells like bread is baking all through the home. You have to think like a retailer. You need to light a candle in this place before they come. And then you need to get out of the house. They're not there to see you. They don't want to see you. They might not like you. And it might affect the negotiation. You need to think like a retailer. This is a model home. You ever go to a builder's place where they have the model home and everything's perfect, the furniture's there, it looks like it's all designed, just Ken and Barbie must live here, you know? That's how they need to feel. Some of you got so much furniture crammed into one room and you think that's decorating. Throw a bunch of that stuff in the garage. Take all the stuff off your kitchen counters, one thing, two things back, light bulbs, think like a retailer. Your front door, those cobwebs in the corner, they're not cute. Who, you, Uncle Fester? Clean the cobwebs out of the corner. And little hand prints where little Junior's been looking out the door, little lip prints on the door. Clean your stinking door. You may think it looks cute, somebody else think it looks like a daycare. And they don't want that house. So think like a retailer. That's how you do this. Now, when you get ready to do basic fix-ups, the $1,000 items. $1,000 worth of paint is a lot of paint. $1,000 worth of 409 is a lot of cleaning. So the elbow grease things that you can do, the cheap fix-up things that you do, walk through the house and do a punch list like you were getting ready to close on a brand new house and the builder hadn't finished it out right. And I want you to fix that, and I want you to fix that, and I want you to fix that. Walk through your own house and do that, and spend the time before you put it on the market taking care of these huge things that are really small. The return on investment on this is enormous. The most important aspect of preparation is attention to curb appeal. Curb appeal is a big deal. Industry studies say in the real estate business that 71% of buyers will make a decision from the curb. They will buy the house from the curb and they'll go in just to make sure there's the right number of bedrooms. How it looks from the street is huge. And if it's ugly from the street, even if it's great on the inside, they're never coming in. You can't get them in. And curb appeal is a big deal. So go stand in the street and ask yourself, what is wrong with this picture? And look at it. What have I got to do? We got to edge the sidewalk. We got to have fresh mulch. The bushes need to be trimmed. I'm amazed at what you can do to get a house ready to sell. I bought a house back when I was doing rehabs, and it's actually not far from this location right here. And it was an old house built back in the 70s, a big old long ranch house, but it had this 25-year-old bushes that were overgrown and trying to eat the house. It was the bushes that ate the house, those old bagworm bushes with bagworms on them. Blah, big old bushes. Ugly. And I thought, I wonder if there's a house behind this foliage. Now, this wasn't a fine, nice oak tree. These were trash shrubs that nobody trimmed in 25 years. You understand the difference? So I said, I got the guys with the chainsaw. I said, all of it. Take it all out. Take it all out. We're going back with small, nice stuff. Man, I'll tell you what, we cut that stuff down. There was a pile of brush the size of a house we were done to get rid of. And we hauled it off. Before I got back over there, it was just, it was down to the dirt, and we were getting ready to go back. When I drove up to this house that I had bought, I missed it. I drove past. It looked so different. The thing visually had grown 10 or 15 feet in length because it wasn't overgrown with bushes. The curb appeal completely changed on this house. There was actually a beautiful home back there. And we put a coat of paint on the outside and put some beautiful landscaping around it, small, and this big, beautiful ranch home was there all of a sudden, and it changed the curb appeal. So look at that. Think about it. When you're walking up the sidewalk, go in the client's mind and do the walk. In other words, I'm going to buy this home. I'm going to come look at it with a real estate agent. I'm going to drive up in the driveway. Where am I going to park? When I park there, what am I going to see? Oh, that fence is broken. Oh, look, that gutter's out of line. That's what I'm going to see when I get out, isn't it? When I get out, I'm going to walk down the sidewalk, right? Is it edged? Or is there stuff growing and big cracks in there? And when I walk up on the front porch, while they have to stand there quite a while to get the little key box and all this other stuff, or to get the key out and you get the thing. They're standing there a little while. This is your first impression on a job interview. You're about to miss the job. If you paint anything, paint your front door. Fresh coat of paint on the front door. Little things like that, if you think like a marketer, will cause your home to not only sell faster, but sell for more. When selling your home these days, you have to make sure it's listed on the internet. As a matter of fact, I might tell you to just put a circle around that, stars all around that thing, more than just listed on the internet. The internet is so important in retailing real estate today. Back in 1995, only 2% of Americans used the internet to look at houses. Now 77% say they look at the internet before they go look at the house. 71% said the sign in the yard and the curb appeal got them. 77% are already saying the internet. And you know what the internet is? That's going to be the picture, right? Or pictures, or lots of pictures, or stuff like iPics where you can do a full 360 of the room. And what are they going to see? They see Kitty? I don't want to see Kitty in this picture. I want to see Better Homes and Gardens in this picture, don't I? I want to see a model home in this picture. And if your realtor that you're working with is not internet savvy in how to prepare the listing and show it on the internet, then you're going to miss it. Because I can tell you, I look at properties and an agent sends it to me with a link back to a website. I click the link, things open up, I get a plot plan, I get exterior views, I get interior views, and the people that are crummy with their pictures, you may never even open up the link because you got that first picture on there and it'll blow it. So all of a sudden, photography becomes a lot of the marketing, and how you lay the thing out on the internet, and are they internet savvy? This is going to make a lot of difference. So make sure your pictures are excellent. It is a big deal in marketing a piece of real estate these days. When selling a home, statistical research has found that the best realtors are worth more than they cost unless you're a seasoned pro. If you're a seasoned pro, you might be able to sell your own home. But almost every case, you are much better off to use a high-quality, high-octane, high-protein realtor. As a matter of fact, the studies say you will get 16% more for your house on average. Last year, the statistics say this, that the average home in North America with a realtor sold for $230,000, and the average home without a realtor sold for $198,000. 16% difference. They are worth what they cost if they're good. Now, I got to tell you about realtors. They're like any other business. 80% of them do 20% of the business. 20% of them do 80% of the business. So you want the 20% that are tail kickers, that get business done. And you'll see them. They got lots of signs in your neighborhood. They know what they're doing. And when you meet them, they're very professional. They have a clue. They present themselves. They know how to interface with humans. They know how to handle relationships and get things done and move things through a very difficult transaction, which selling a home these days is. And of course, you want them to use the exposure through the multiple listing service. Now, the multiple listing service is simply the computer system that the realtors use, that all of the real estate that is listed with a realtor is put into that system. And these days, it's all web-based, and again, the realtor can go to the web, and in some places, you can go to the web and just look at what's on the market. And you go, oh, I want that one. And then you can open up and look at the pictures and do the whole thing. Or they'll send you a link back into their MLS system and let you see that one site there with that property. So you need the exposure when you're retailing a piece of property to the most people. Listen, if you can expose your house to 10,000 people and I can expose your house to 10 people, who's going to get the most money for the house? You, the guy with 10,000. And who's going to sell the house quicker? The guy with 10,000. And who's most likely to sell the house, period? The guy with 10,000. So the more eyeballs that know your house is available, the better your deal is going to go down as a seller. And that's why using a realtor and using the MLS is worth the trouble if you get a good one. When selecting a realtor, do not rely on friendships or relatives. Well, my Aunt Sally just got in the business and she just passed her test after the 14th try. And I just would feel guilty if I let someone handle my largest asset if it wasn't Aunt Sally. Hundreds of thousands of dollars are placed in a friend who just got in the business hand. Not a chance. The way you look at a realtor is they are a marketing consultant that is paid on commission. If it doesn't sell, they don't get paid. It's that simple. And so you need to interview them. You need to interview them for the job. If I'm doing something at my business and I want to hire a marketing consultant to come in and help us sell something, and I'm going to pay them $12,000 or $20,000, I'm going to interview them. I want to know they've actually done some marketing before in the area that I'm thinking of, that they have some experience, that they have some references, that they have what's known as a clue. And they should be able to come in and do a presentation that shows that they know what they're doing. If I'm going to hire a marketing consultant to sell books for Dave Ramsey, then they ought to be somebody who's sold a book before. A lot. Especially if I'm going to pay them 20 grand to do it. And so, well, I just thought I was a marketing consultant, and so I printed up some business cards, and here I am. I'm not giving this guy $20,000. Not a chance. And you don't need to either on your largest asset. It's way, way too important. So make sure you get someone. Ask them how many homes they've sold last year. Sold 12 houses. 12 houses, that's one a month. Well, you're eating a lot of donuts, aren't you? One house a month? You're not even eating good in the real estate business. I mean, you used to in the old days, back when I got into business, if you sold $1 million worth of real estate, you sold a lot of real estate. You got to sell $1 million worth to just stay in the business now. And just with the costs and all the expenses that are associated with the business. You know, and really $1 million these days is 5, 6, 7 houses a year. In some areas it's one. You know, it's nothing. I'm in the $1 million club, so that means you're breathing air and got a license. I'm not impressed. I want somebody sold 50, 60, 80 houses, 100 houses, 200 houses in a year. Somebody's cranking it out. Well, they can't give you good attention. Yeah, they can. They're giving a lot of people good attention. Their houses are getting sold. That's what happens. So you want somebody who knows how to kick tail and take names. That's what you're after. Offering a home warranty typically will not make a sale. We used to sell them when I was in the business, but they're really kind of like the extended warranty thing, you know, on appliances. It's this kind of thing where we made all the commission and you got your heating and air system covered. Listen, if you walk around back and the heating and air system looks like an antique, it's because it's an antique. You need to take that into consideration when you're buying the house. Now, if they want to come up and ask you to buy a home warranty and you think that's going to cause you to lose the deal, well, buy the stupid home warranty. It's not worth fighting over. But buying one up front and offering it as a marketing technique, it's bogus. Won't work. When it comes to buying a home, let's look at this different. Buying a home is a great idea because it's a forced savings plan. As you pay that mortgage off, you have saved money. I mean, if you buy a home for $100,000 and over the years you pay, or $200,000, over the year you pay it down to nothing, you force yourself to save, even if the house didn't go up in value. You forced yourself to save that $200,000. It's an inflation hedge. Now, a lot of you in this room are young enough and watching this are young enough that you haven't really faced real inflation. Inflation for the last couple of decades has been 4 or 5% a year, 3% a year. It's not been a big deal. When I got in the real estate business in 1978, inflation was raging and the real estate in our area was going up 12% a year. And so if we were doing comps on a house that sold 3 months ago, we had to add 1% a month to the price of it to have an accurate price of what it was selling for now. That's how fast it was moving. So if inflation is up there in double digits, any of you remember back in the 70s when inflation was shooting, skyrocketing? You know, if inflation is double digits, the good news is if you own a house, you're part of the ride. If you don't own a home, you're not part of the ride. You're being locked out by inflation. That's a big deal. And of course, it grows virtually tax-free for most people. Current tax law says if you own your personal residence 2 years, you can make a profit on it, a gain on it, of up to $500,000, $500,000 if you're married filing jointly, tax-free. Up to $250,000 if you're filing as a single person. So it's a great idea. Now, when you're buying a home, always buy title insurance. Title insurance insures you against an unclean title. Now, some people think because they haven't done a lot of real estate deals, they say, well, that's just one of those closing costs. That's just one of those rip-offs. I'm not buying title insurance. The title's not bad. Listen, titles are bad all the time. Title insurance insures you that if something's messed up in a former transfer of ownership, that title company has checked that and they have insured against that, and then if somebody comes back and has a claim, they have to pay them. An example is I owned a piece of property one time that I bought from a guy who had bought from 2 sisters. And those 2 sisters owned the house from an estate. Their mom had died. Turns out the 2 sisters had a brother. He didn't sign off on the house when it was sold, and it wasn't approved by the court through the probate system. And so they didn't have full title transferred to the guy who then sold it to me. Brother's standing around going, I want some money. And I called the title company and I said, brother wants some money. And they paid brother some money. And he signed off on the documents, and then we had clean title again. Had he not done that, he really had an honest, he had a place here. In this, he's one of those heirs that appears back out of the night. And these things happen. Well, it doesn't happen. It happens all the time. I had a friend of mine bought a house, and the title company had done such a bad job. They had allowed an FHA loan, which is always a first mortgage, to be put on this house, and there was already a mortgage on it. So that means that FHA loan was now a second mortgage. Very unusual. So guess what the first mortgage guy got? Paid off by the title company. He got his money in full from the title company because they had to do that so that that FHA loan was a first mortgage, like they had guaranteed the title to be clean to be. And so always buy title insurance. These things really do happen out there in the real world. If the lot is not a standard subdivision lot, if you're buying land in any way, get a survey. Get a survey. Now, I'm from Tennessee, and in Tennessee, we don't have, when you fly over Tennessee, it doesn't look like little checkerboards. When you fly over some parts of the country, it looks beautiful, and there's these little perfect squares, and everybody knows where their line is because it's all laid out in townships and squares and those kinds of things. In Tennessee, the survey was done from a pile of rocks to an oak tree that died 50 years ago. And the pile of rocks is gone too. And 3 or 4 generations have been stretching the truth about how many acres are in the back field, until by the time you get back there, you realize that you really have 20 acres, and everybody's been telling everybody it was 30 for years. And you got ripped because you didn't get a survey. You always get a certified survey unless you're buying a standard subdivision type lot. In that situation, you're pretty protected. Now, when you're buying a home, the realtor's access to the MLS system can make house hunting easier. Because otherwise, you're just driving around looking at signs. You're just all over the place. And they can search the internet. They can help you search the internet. There's all kinds of ways to get access. You can look at the pictures like we're saying. You get to be one of those people that enjoys the view of the home without even having to drive over there. And then make that decision on whether you're going to go or not. Now, the only problem you run into with some realtors when you're buying a home is realtors, the good news is when you're selling, they think like retailers. The bad news is when you're buying, they think like retailers. They think in full price. It's sticker shock to them for you to get a serious bargain. I discovered this having grown up in a real estate person's household, but then when I walked over and started buying foreclosures, I was amazed at how emotionally blocked a lot of realtors were on a serious, deep ditch bargain. I mean cut to the bone bargain. And so you drive up and I'm looking at this foreclosure and the house is worth $300,000. It's Tuesday morning. Foreclosure is on Friday. It's worth $300,000. They owe $150,000 on it. But on Friday, the bidding will start at $150,000 at the foreclosure sale. I'd like to buy it before that happens because I don't have to bid against anybody else if I can buy it before Friday. Does this make sense? So I pick up the phone, I call the realtor. At that time, I'm an investor. Calling the realtor was a courtesy, but I grew up in that business, so I could have gone and just knocked on the door and talked to the people. But I grew up in the business, so as a courtesy, I call the realtor and say, listen, I don't know if you realize this or not, but your listing on Main Street over here is going to be foreclosed on Friday. You're kidding. Oh my gosh, they never told me they were in trouble. Well, it's in trouble. I'm looking at the thing. It's going to be 11 o'clock on Friday's sale, and I'd like to go ahead and buy it before then. And it looks to me like they owe $150,000 on it. Yeah, that's right. And I guess they're motivated now because, you know, they wouldn't come down on the price before. And I said, well, you know, I'll give them $160,000 for it, and we'll close it this afternoon. Well, they'll never take $160,000. I said, they will Friday. The bidding will start at $150,000 on Friday. That's how this is going to work. Well, I can't go in there in good conscience and present that offer. I said, you're going to, in good conscience, sit here and let the thing be foreclosed on because you can't wrap your mind around a deep discount? And I've had these discussions hundreds of times, because they can't go from $300,000 to $150,000 that quick in their emotions. So if you get a realtor, you kind of got to train them about this thing if you're looking for a deal. And if they think you're a retail buyer, of course, they're all excited, but I'm not a retail buyer. Now, when you get ready to buy a home, here's some things to keep in mind. Always buy at the bottom of the neighborhood range, the bottom of the price range in the neighborhood. If the price range in this neighborhood is $200,000 to $280,000, you don't want to buy the $290,000 house. You certainly don't want to buy the $305,000 house in a neighborhood that's known for $250,000 houses. You understand? Because it's not going to appreciate. You're going to be at the top of the market, and nobody comes to that neighborhood looking at the top of the market. You want to be down at the bottom of that range, down close to $200,000, because you're the smallest home, and people that dream of living in that big fancy neighborhood can barely get in there in your house. And that'll always cause you to get great appreciation. Buy at the bottom of the market. Now, I've been taught this in appraisal class for years in college and as I was getting my license and different things. Homes appreciate in good neighborhoods, and price on real estate is based on three things: location, location, and location. You can take a mobile home that's a piece of garbage, a house trailer, a trailer with the wheels off, and put it in the field in the middle of Mississippi or Iowa, and it won't bring $2,000, $3,000. You put it on Malibu Beach in California, it'll bring $1.2 million. And it's not the trailer, it's that little piece of sand that it's sitting on. You can take an old home from the 70s that needs redecorating. It's really kind of ugly. The architecture is behind. The goodies, the bells and whistles in there definitely aren't up to snuff with new construction technique. And, 1974, out of date. All the appliances are ugly, everything. And you can't give that house away unless its zip code is 90210, Beverly Hills. And that's what the homes look like in a lot of Beverly Hills. But it has to do with where it's sitting in proximity to Rodeo Drive. And all of a sudden, this thing that might be a $100,000 property in some areas, or a $200,000 property, is suddenly a multi-gazillion-dollar property right there in the middle of Beverly Hills. It has to do with location. Location, location, and location. When you get ready to buy, if possible, go ahead and try to buy near water or someplace with a view. People will pay money to be near water or someplace with a view. You get up high on a mountain and you can see way out through there. That view, look at that view. And by the way, if you're going to list your home and you have a view on the internet, put a picture of the view on the internet. This is what it looks like from the front porch. And do that 360 thing, right? That iPix type thing. And show that if I was sitting in this rocking chair, this is what I would see. Oh, wow, I want to go look at this house. You might not even show them a picture of the front of the house, but if you see what it looks like looking out the front window, they'll come look. That view is big deal, a big deal. And water is a big deal. We have a neighborhood right near where I live, and I'm sorry because I'm kind of making fun of some of my friends, but they'll go along with me. They know what I'm talking about. It was a series of homes built back in the 70s, and basically they went out in the middle of this hayfield like they do a lot of times when they're building a house, right? Or out in the middle of, pasture land, and they just started building a house. So happened there was a pond out in the middle of this hayfield. And this pond, well, we renamed the hayfield to a meadow, and we renamed the pond to a lake. And so now we have Meadow Lake subdivision. And when you drive down the street on Meadow Lake subdivision, there are houses on one side of the street that aren't on the lake. And they are substantially cheaper than the ones across the street that are on the lake. It's a pond in a hayfield. But it's water. And that pond will justify tens of thousands of dollars of difference because, look, there's a duck on the pond. And all of a sudden, people start writing checks, don't they? And that happens everywhere, in every area of the country. That's not unique to my area of the country. By the way, a well-dressed drainage ditch starts to sound a lot like a creek. Keep these things in mind. It's a wet weather creek, though. Keep that in mind. It's gee. Buy bargains by overlooking outdated carpet, ugly wallpaper, and the Elvis print in the master bedroom. See, how many of you remember the carpet like this? Y'all remember that? Used to have a rake to make it stand up. Do you remember that? If you get a house with this stuff in it, you got a potential bargain. Because let me tell you, a lot of things go retro. Carpet doesn't go retro. It just gets old. That's all. I mean, the shag carpet that you need to mow, I mean, it's deep. My hand is disappearing in there. And if you go in the house and the people doing this were the decorators, well, I mean, if this is the decorating, you're ready, aren't you? You got a velvet Elvis over the master bedroom, I smell bargain right then, don't I? You put the shag carpet and the velvet Elvis together, oh, we got a deal for sure. Because the average person walking in that house doesn't have the imagination to look past that. This seller didn't think like a retailer, and you got a bargain. These are things you can fix cheap. This is how you buy bargains, really. You find stuff like this, and it's really out there. It wasn't that hard to find it, which is scary. I remember one time I was buying and selling foreclosures. I had this young couple at the church that they said, Dave, if you get one of those foreclosures, we've got some cash saved up. We want to buy one of those. We want to buy one of those. I thought, well, that's okay, I'll find. And I found a house. This was 20 years ago. And it was a nice house 20 years ago. Now, today it'd be a lot bigger numbers. But I found this house for them, and I thought, well, I'll cut them in on a deal. And so the house was worth about $140,000. So it'd be worth hundreds of thousands now, right? It was worth about $140,000. And I was able to buy it for $60,000, under half. And I told them, I'll make $5,000 on you. You give me $65,000 for it, and you close it the same day I buy it, and that's a quick $5,000 for me, and you got a great deal. And they, oh, good, a great deal. Yeah, that's under half. I mean, $140,000, and that's under $70,000. That's a sweet deal. It's 50% discount. I was doing them a favor. I could have sold it for a lot. I take them over there. She walks around looking at it. She comes back out, and she says, we just can't buy it. Why not? I just can't stand that carpet color. I'm like, lady, you're buying this thing $75,000 under market. I mean, do you want to carpet the whole neighborhood? You'll still come out. We could put carpet on the roof and you'll still come out. We could change the carpet 6 times a year and you'll still come out. But she mentally couldn't get her imagination past the decorating, even with a $75,000, even with over a 50% discount. That's a big deal. And, you know, I'll tell you, buying foreclosures, you get to see a lot of weird stuff. I mean, you get to see these. One of the last deals I did was another home that was about 6,000 square feet. It was a big old house, and it was an old house, and the appraisal on it was $140,000 as well. And this bank had foreclosed on it. Actually, it was not the same deal, but it was the same numbers, $140,000, and the bank had foreclosed on it, and the bank now owned it. And I pulled the foreclosure papers up. It happened before I could get to it, and the bank owned it, and the bank had just bid it in for $60,000. So again, $140,000 over $60,000. So I go over there looking at the house and all, and it was August, and I walked into this house, and these people had kitties. Lots of kitties. And these kitties didn't behave. These kitties didn't use the little box, apparently. It was unbelievable odor. And I went back out of that house, man, thought I was just there. My clothes were in shreds. I mean, it was just like a toxic dump. And the house wasn't bad, but this thing, tears running out my eyes. It was so bad. And so this bank had been sold to another bank, and they had their little real estate person in another city who had no clue. Because if you're in another city, often you have no clue about real estate. You don't know what the other side of the tracks is because you don't know where the tracks are, right? It's a dumb idea. So they send in this young lady, and she was in her early 20s, and she was their real estate person. Now that the bank had been sold, they flew her in to look at the house. And so I had already been in correspondence with her, talking to her and so forth. And I said, well, I do want to buy it, and I'll be happy to give you guys a good offer on it. But I want you, when you come in, I want to go over there and look at it with you. And, of course, when I heard she was coming in, I went over and made sure every door was closed real tight. And let the heat just run, you know. I mean, it just, whew. And this poor young, bless her heart, she went in there. I didn't even go in. I just stood back and just watched my watch. Like 34 seconds later, I mean, she hits the front door going, it was great. I mean, they paid $60,000 for it at the foreclosure. I bought it from her for $40,000. I would have paid $60,000 for it, but I was having a lot of fun. And I figure, you know, we did end up literally having to pull the floor up all the way through the thing. But when you buy something at 30% of value, you can pull the floor up. You know, and you're not looking for that deal. Believe me, you're not looking for that deal. You don't even want that house after I put a new floor in it. But you are looking for a deal where you can change out the carpet and the Velvet Elvis. Always buy a home that is attractive from the street and has a good floor plan. A good basic floor plan. So you can fix stuff like this, but if a house is ugly at its bones, if it's got ugly bones, you got an ugly house. And you can't change the carpet enough. It's still ugly after you change the carpet. You know what I'm saying? And so if it's got ugly bones, you got to stay away from it, or you got to buy it so cheap you can completely tear the thing down just about and start again. My very first house I bought had ugly bones. It was a really dumb idea, but it was a good deal, I thought, until I tried to sell it, because it had ugly bones. In Tennessee, sometimes when we're building a neighborhood, we'll cut a road through the side of a mountain. And the houses above the road are kind of perched up there, and the ones below the road are kind of down below there. We've got a joke in the business we call in that area. We say the ones down below the road are oil pan houses, because you can stand on the front porch and look at the oil pans of the cars as they drive by. That's about the elevation. Well, we bought the one up the hill. And the idiot that built this thing up on the hill decided to build it really tall up on the hill. And so it kind of just stuck up there, ugly in the air. Bad elevation, a bad idea. And had this driveway that went straight down like this to the street. Just straight down. You had to turn the car to keep from dragging stuff when you got to the bottom. You know what I'm saying? I came in after an ice storm one night. My parents were over visiting with my wife, and this idiot driving beside me in an ice storm had gone into a spin and hit my car on every side. He just went all the way around it. And so I'm not in a good mood already when I get home, and ice is about this thick all over everything. You can't walk on anything. And so I'm going, there's no way you walk up this driveway. And so I walk up the other side of the driveway in the neighbor's yard, and I'm trying to cut across the top of the driveway to get to the front porch, and I fell. Well, I'm breakdancing like a ninja turtle all the way to the street. You know. Screaming and saying things I can't say in church. You know what I'm saying? My mother looks out the window and says, somebody's playing on your driveway, honey. Don't buy a house with ugly bones. You can't fix that. I ended up giving that house away just about. Don't buy a house with ugly bones. Have the home inspected mechanically and structurally by a certified home inspector. When you're getting an appraisal, remember that an appraisal is an opinion of value. Some appraisers understand that they are to render an opinion. Others think they're God. And they get this little ego thing going in the process. Had an appraiser one time, I had the house sold for $262,500. And he had the contract, so he knew what the deal was at. That was part of the package we gave them. Gave him comparable sales to show that it was worth that. But this guy had a little thing going about his power, a little Barney Fife action. Turns in the appraisal, not at $262,500, but at $262,250. Now, you don't know within $250 what a house is worth. There is no such thing. I've done hundreds of appraisals. That's just ego. So we put him on the list of do not call ever again. Appraiser list, right? Do not buy trailers or mobile homes. Do not buy timeshares. Why? These two things, the value disappears on them. Trailers go down in value. Mobile homes go down in value like a rock. They go down in value faster than a car. Financially, it's a car you sleep in. Don't buy them. Timeshares go down in value 1,000% to zero the instant you buy them because no one will buy it. There is no secondary market for timeshares. You can't give the stupid things away. And when you get caught up in buying a timeshare, you're going to own it the rest of your life. You're hung there. It is not an investment. You're better off take your vacation money, go on vacation. Now, when it comes to mortgages, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to remember to hate debt. That's the first thing. We remember the borrower's slave to the lender. We don't want to do debt at all. And so I would like for you to think about something really wild with mortgages. I want you to consider maybe using the 100% down plan. Pay cash, in other words. Don't buy it unless you just write a check. Oh, that's just not realistic. You can't do that. Really? Really? I'll tell you. I've run into it. I can tell you this. It's weird, but normal's broke. Had a guy call me from Cleveland on my radio show. He said, Dave, I grew up with my granddad. My granddad was old school, and he told me, if you ever borrow money, I'm going to kill you. And he said, that's how I was raised. I didn't think borrowing money was an option at all. He said, I was 23 years old, and I had a really good job. And I always have to clarify on the radio because I don't know what they mean. I said, what's a really good job? He said, I was making $50,000 a year. That's a really good job at 23 years old. And he said, I married this young lady that was a teacher, and she was making $30,000 a year, so we had a household income of $80,000 a year. We moved into a garage studio apartment over the top of this rich old lady's garage. I kept her gutters cleaned and her yard cut, and we paid almost no rent because the rent was only $250 anyway, while we're making $80,000 a year. We drove my old car, paid off her old car. We lived while we're making 80 on 30 and banked 50. We banked 50 while living on 30 and making 80. We did that for 4 years. That's $200,000 for those of you that aren't quick. 4 times 50. He said, I was 3 years old when I started this. When I turned 27, I wrote a check and purchased a $150,000 home, handed my young bride a check for $50,000 to furnish it with, and we paid cash. Now, how set up do you think this guy is? You think he's going to be wealthy? Well, I thought I'd run some numbers for the fun of it. Let's say instead he'd taken out a $150,000 mortgage, and he'd kept a mortgage throughout his life. $150,000 mortgage of 15% at 6% is $1,265.79. If you pay $1,265.79 from age 29, which is just after he closed on the house, until age 69, throughout his working lifetime, if he just paid himself a house payment into a decent mutual fund that we learned about in the lessons of MISA mutual funds, that house payment will become just under $15 million. Now, how dumb was this guy? But I said, did people make fun of you? He goes, oh, yeah. He said, my mother-in-law was the worst. She came over 2 or 3 times and tried to do an intervention. She said we needed counseling, that I was abusing her daughter. And I abused her by writing her a $50,000 check to furnish a paid-for house with, and set her up to completely change his family tree. Why? Because his grandfather put a different paradigm in his head about mortgages, that, oh, well, you can get a house, you just have to save up and pay for it. People don't think that way. Maybe you're not going to do the 100% down plan, but maybe you get gazelle intense and you get out of debt and you start piling up some cash. Maybe you put 50% down, and maybe you put it on a 15-year, but maybe you pay it off in 6. And you just think different than your neighbors. You think different than broke people, like I'm always going to have a mortgage instead of I'm always going to have a car payment. Now, where do we save up to buy our first home in the baby steps? We recommend baby step 3B. Baby step 3 is 3 to 6 months. So I want you to have your emergency fund in place, and I want you to be sure that you have the debt paid off. You're debt-free with the emergency fund in place, and then you save for your down payment or your 100% down payment plan. That's where you do that. 15 million reasons to do it. Think about it. Think about it. And by the way, paid-for homes aren't that unusual. Realtors tell us that 11% of second home buyers pay cash. And literally, nationally, the Census Bureau says that 35%, that's 1/3 of Americans' homes are paid for. But we don't think about it that way. The other 2/3 are running around acting like, oh, you're stupid if you pay off your house and those kinds of things, right? Now, by the way, there's nothing wrong with renting. There's nothing wrong with renting for a little while. If you're renting for a little while like he did, when he rented that $250 place, he was going somewhere with renting. Now, I don't want renting to be a way of life, but renting can demonstrate a little bit of patience and a little bit of wisdom if it's part of your plan to get yourself out of debt, to have that emergency fund in place, and then buy at the proper way and in the proper time. When you do get ready to buy, I don't recommend debt. I don't like debt. I save up and pay for things. I will never borrow money for anything again, period, under any circumstances. You don't have anything I want bad enough to go into debt for it. But if you're going to buy, I'm not going to yell at you on this one kind of debt. Everything else, I'll yell at you. So get a payment of no more than 25% of your take-home pay on a 15-year fixed-rate loan with at least 10% down. Let's look at a 15-year mortgage versus a 30 for an example. This is interesting stuff. If you take a $225,000 mortgage on a 15-year basis, the payment would be $1,899. If you did it on a 30-year basis, it'd be $1,349. The difference on that is $550. But let's visit Joe and Susie in this example 10 years later. After 10 years, the $225,000 loan on a 15-year basis is paid down to $98,000. After paying on it for 10 years, the 30-year $225,000 loan is paid down only to $188,292. The bottom line is this: you would have paid almost $162,000 in on this 30-year mortgage, but only paid down on the loan by $36,708. Now let's look at some bad ideas in real estate. Bad idea, adjustable rate mortgage. Adjustable rate mortgages were brought on with the advent of high interest rates in the early 1980s. We talked about this a little bit in the debt lesson. It's the bank transferring risk to you of higher interest rates. As rates go up, they don't want to be stuck in cheap mortgages again. They want you to go with them as rates go up. And so the concept of the ARM is to transfer the risk of higher interest rates to the borrower. Of course, interest-only loans are a bad idea because you're only paying the interest. Well, if you pay extra, it goes towards the principal. So does it on a regular mortgage. You don't have to have an interest-only to do that. A regular FHA, a regular conventional, a regular VA. If you pay extra on it, it goes extra. Well, I was planning on paying extra. Good. Don't take out an interest-only because then there's a chance you would pay only the interest. Dumb idea. Reverse mortgages. Dumb idea. I worked my whole life to get out of debt. And now I'm going to let them pay me payments while my debt goes back up. The Federal Trade Commission says reverse mortgages are fraught with fraud and con artists. Now, everybody that does reverse mortgage is not a con artist. That's not what I'm saying. But there's all kinds of con artists around this issue. And the reason is they're primarily targeted at the elderly. And the elderly are always a target for cons. So you got to be very, very, very careful with these. If you get a legitimate reverse mortgage, even then your fees and interest rates are ridiculous and high. It's a bad, bad, bad plan. Stay away from it. Accelerated or biweekly payoff. Now, the idea of paying extra, accelerating your payment on your mortgage is not a bad idea. The idea of paying extra on your mortgage by doing a biweekly is not a bad idea. The idea of paying someone a fee to cause this to happen is a bad idea. There are companies out there that will sell you magic software for $3,000 or $4,000. And the magic software will cause you to get your budget together and you will not even have to cut your spending habits and your mortgage will magically reduce. Bull! Mortgages don't magically reduce. Mortgages reduce when you do one thing, when you pay extra on the principal. And no software makes you do that. You got to make you do that. The biweekly mortgage is not a bad idea, but don't pay somebody $400 or $500 to set up the biweekly mortgage. What the biweekly mortgage is you pay half a payment every 2 weeks. There are 26 2-week periods in a year. 26 halves is 13 wholes. That's like paying an extra payment a year. That's why your mortgage pays off quicker with a biweekly. It's not because it's half a payment every 2 weeks. There's no magic in the 2-week math. That's garbage. Now, if you want to set up a biweekly mortgage and you don't pay extra to do it, that's fine. But don't pay somebody $400 or $500 to pay extra on your principal in any of these cases. Dumb idea. Well, Dave, I don't want to pay off my mortgage. I get a tax advantage. How many of you ever heard, I don't want to pay off my mortgage, I get a tax break. I'll lose my tax deduction if I pay off my mortgage. Have you heard that? Raise your hand. Everybody's heard that. And financial people go, oh, no, you would never want to pay off your home mortgage. You're going to lose your tax deduction. I'm always confused by financial people who can't add. I want you to help me with this and show you why that this does not make sense, why this is another one of those financial myths that's out there. Let's take a $200,000 mortgage for just a second. If I had a $200,000 mortgage at 5% interest, if I had a $200,000 mortgage at 5% interest, the interest I would have paid that year would be 5% of $200,000, which would be $10,000. Does that sound right? Say yes. Yes. So basically a $200,000 mortgage at 5% creates $10,000 in annual interest paid. Now, if you make $70,000 a year, and if you itemize in your taxes, you can deduct, you don't have to make 70, but if you pay out $10,000, you can deduct that on your taxes if you itemize, can't you? As a tax deduction, say yes. Yes. No trick questions here. So if I make $70,000 a year and I deduct $10,000, I don't pay taxes on 70, I pay taxes on 60. Now, if you were to pay off your house because you're a wild and crazy Dave Ramsey nut, then you would lose that interest because you're not paying interest anymore, and you're going to pay taxes not on $60,000 worth of income, but on 70. So you're going to pay taxes on an extra $10,000 of income. Right now, if you're making $70,000 a year, you're in the 25% tax bracket. So your taxes on $10,000 would be 25% of $10,000. Does that sound right? Say yes. Yes. 25% of $10,000 is $2,500. And so you could pay the bank $10,000 to keep from paying the government $2,500. That's a tax deduction. Let me try that again because I don't think you got through. A tax deduction is sending the bank $10,000 to keep from sending the government $2,500. This is dumb. Here's an idea. What if you paid off your house and you gave your church $10,000? Would it have exactly the same effect? Yes. Why aren't all the financial goobers running around going, increase your charitable giving? Increase your charitable giving to certified 501c3s. Why don't you increase your charitable giving? Why don't we hear that one all the time? And you don't have to go in debt to do that. You can trade $10,000 for $2,500 as many times as you want to until you start making too much money and you're one of those evil rich people and they'll take that away too. But other than that, right? You know, most people itemizing can take a charitable deduction, can they not? A huge charitable deduction. You don't have to be in debt to do that. Weirdness out there. But CPAs, people that are certified public accountants, can't add and tell people to keep their home mortgage because they don't want to lose the tax deduction. I want to lose my tax deduction. And I want to instead give it to something that matters and take the same tax deduction later. But that'll not be because of the tax deduction. That'll be because of the giving is the right thing to do. Let's look at the different kinds of mortgages. Conventional mortgages. Conventional mortgages. This is usually through Fannie Mae or Ginnie Mae. Federal National Mortgage Association. It's privately insured against default. What that means is these loans are packaged together and they're sold as bonds, and they're what are called conforming mortgages. All of that to say it's a very generic, very structured process for you to get a conventional mortgage. And they are insured by you with a thing called private mortgage insurance, PMI. PMI is foreclosure insurance. If you get foreclosed on and the bank loses money, the insurance company pays the bank for the money they lost. That's what private mortgage insurance is. And if you don't put down at least 20% on a conventional loan, they require you to buy PMI. And right now it's costing you about $70 a month per $100,000 borrowed. And so PMI can be avoided by putting down at least 20%. By the way, if you have paid your mortgage down on a conventional to 20% down to an 80% loan to value, you can cause them to drop the PMI. Or if you can get the house appraised in many cases by an appraisal company that is certified and accepted by your mortgage company, you can spend $400 or $500 getting that appraisal done, and you can show that there's at least a 20% equity position, they will drop the PMI. So that's something to look at. Another kind of loan is the FHA loan, which is insured by HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Department, okay? So the FHA loan is a loan that is insured by the government. So if you get foreclosed on, the government insures that bank that they're not going to lose money on you. These loans allow small down payments as low as 3%, and especially are targeted at lower priced homes. A lot of your first-time home buyer programs have an FHA loan at their core in some way. They are currently more expensive than conventional financing, and I do not recommend an FHA loan. You're going to put down a good down payment. You're going to be in good shape when you buy if you do it the way I teach, and you can avoid a lot of fees, and you can get a cheaper loan by doing a conventional loan. The VA loan is insured by the Veterans Administration. This is designed to benefit the veteran. The seller can pay everything, and you really can move in with absolutely nothing out of pocket at all. Problem is there's a lot of fees built into these, and the interest rates are very high. With a good down payment, the conventional loan is a better loan than the VA, which is a shame because the VA ought to have it set up where it's good for the veteran. But really, if you're a veteran, I wouldn't buy a VA loan. I'd buy a conventional loan. It's a better deal for you. Owner financing. This is when you pay the owner over time, making him or her the mortgage holder. So if I were to buy a home from this gentleman right here, the house was paid for, and we would just do an owner finance deal, then I could give him $10,000 down or $20,000 down and agree to monthly payments just like I would have been paying a mortgage company, but he would receive the monthly payments and he would credit them just like the mortgage company. He becomes my mortgage payment. It's owner financing. Now the cool thing about that, it's a great way to finance because you can be very creative in how you structure the loan. You know, if the house is all torn up and you're buying it from an estate, you could move into the house and have no payments for a year to give you time to do the renovation out of pocket with what would have been payments. And so you could just make something up as long as you and I agree to it, as long as, and we stick to what we agreed to, then there's not going to be a problem. You can just make it up. Now, if you've got any owner financing, here's a suggestion. With rates down, why don't you call them up and ask them if you pay them off early, how much of a discount they'll give you? Maybe you owe them $100,000. If you gave it to them right now, and you don't have to, I mean, it may be a 30-year deal. They're going to wait forever, getting a little bit at a time, but I'll give it to you right now if you'll take $70,000. They might knock $30,000 off and you go get you a new mortgage and knock those guys out. That'd be a huge discount. And that right there would have paid for this course about 1,000 times over. So you just made your money back on that one thing if you're in an owner finance situation. Now, the deal with real estate is simply this. It is a wonderful, wonderful thing to own real estate. Do not buy real estate quickly. Move slowly. Be the tortoise. Don't be the hare. People run around, you need to buy a house, got 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 to buy a house. You don't have to buy a house. You'll get a house. Don't let the house get you. When you buy a house and you're broke, Murphy will move in your spare bedroom. He'll bring his 3 cousins, broke, desperate, and stupid, with him. They will own your life. You'll turn your life to where it looks like a country song. What you thought was going to be a blessing will be a curse. Because everybody runs around, got to buy a house, got to buy a house, got to buy a house. Don't buy a house. Do not buy a house until you're financially ready. And then that home will be a blessing rather than a curse. Thanks.
$11 more years and I'll be debt-free from the home, providing I don't come into some other funds to get me there faster.
My house is paid off and my car is paid off and I have a ton of money invested.
Like Julie said, we're investing now, where before we didn't know what to do. So we're hoping to pay our house off in 4 years, and then with that, it really gives us some flexibility.
So 8 years after buying the house, we paid it off.
Dave, we're second generation. My parents are debt-free and we're debt-free. My dad bought Mom a house for Christmas in cash, paid for it.
We've paid a house off once, and then with the increased family and increased size for space, we bought a second house, and we're $175,000, but our plan is to have it paid off in 5 years or less.